Tristan is a 29-year-old accountant who recently got laid off. As if the situation wasn't already bad enough, his spouse divorced him and took the kids and the house. Determined to get his life back on track before his severance pay ended, he applies to new positions, sending out resumes to several places, only to be caught in an endless cycle of rejection. During that time, he reported feeling down and anxious every day for most of the day. He had lost 30 pounds without dieting because he felt like he didn't need or want to eat. He had trouble sleeping almost every night and would often find himself awake at 3 a.m. in the morning. He finally gets a low-paying job at a dog food factory, but he has trouble concentrating on the job and oftentimes feels guilty that his poor work ethic and performance may cause harm to the well-being of millions of people's pets. Symptoms. Tristan showed major symptoms of major depression, which include but are not limited to abnormal eating and weight change. According to the ADAA, weight loss is the effect of abnormal eating habits that are often caused by depression and stress. This can cause various effects, but oftentimes result in the patient becoming either under or overweight. There can be various cases for undereating and overeating, but a common cause for this condition is called anorexia nervosa, where individuals see themselves as overweight, even though they are dangerously thin. According to Majorny Nolan, a registered dietitian, people with major depression have less desire for food, and they start skipping meals. Often, they're sleeping through meals. Another major symptom is insomnia. Insomnia is a common hallmark of clinical depression and can often trigger or worsen existing depression. Stanford research psychologist Tracy Q explains that this is because when people can't sleep, they often become anxious about not sleeping. Anxiety can then further increase the potential for becoming depressed. Restlessness and trouble staying focused. People with depression often experience memory loss and difficulty focusing. This can result in misunderstandings at work, home, or school, and can further exacerbate other symptoms and conditions. Feelings of guilt and worthlessness. People with depression often experience existential guilt and reactive guilt for their actions. For instance, a person who self-isolates may feel guilty for shutting down their own family and friends, but also feels that he or she is worthless to them. Other symptoms may include substance abuse. Substance abuse is a symptom synonymous with depression, so much so that the National Bureau of Economic Research reported that people who have been diagnosed with a mental illness or disorder at some point in life consume up to 69% of the nation's alcohol and 84% of the nation's cocaine. People who are depressed often resort to drinking or drugs to escape their life and feelings of guilt and despair. However, alcohol is in fact a depressant which can further exacerbate existing depression. More serious symptoms also include self-harm and potentially suicide.
Depression is characterized by feelings of negative emotions such as sadness, apathy, dread, and anger. Like most of human behavior, there are biological factors correlated to its occurrence. According to Mayo Clinic and Harvard Health Publishing, depression can be attributed to multiple biological factors such as structural differences in the brain, imbalances of hormones, a difference in inherited traits, and differences in brain chemistry. People who suffer from depression also show different signs of brain activity. According to Harvard Health Publishing, the amygdala, the part of the brain dedicated to strong negative emotions like anger and sorrow, tends to be more active in people with major depressive disorder. The hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for the formation of memories, is another part of the brain affected by depression and tends to be much smaller in people with the disorder. It is believed that stress hormones hinder its growth. According to Harvard Health and Grace Point, there are multiple hormones that play a role during depression. Serotonin is a hormone that assists in regulating sleep, aggression, appetite, mood, pain, inhibition, and sexual behavior. Research has supported that people with depression tend to have lower levels of serotonin transmission, resulting in substance abuse, tiredness, and sleep-related issues, as well as suicidal behaviors. Norepinephrine is a hormone thought to be linked with stress and depression. Norepinephrine assists the body in identifying and responding to stressful situations by constricting the blood vessels and raising blood pressure. Norepinephrine is thought to cause depression in people with norepinephrine systems that can't handle stress efficiently. Dopamine, known as the reward chemical, also plays a role in depression. Dopamine is responsible for motivation and pleasure responses. It is believed that people with depression have lower levels of dopamine, causing them to feel less pleasure in doing activities when being depressed. A lower level of dopamine has been linked to substance abuse. According to Harvard Health Publishing, the hormone corticotropin may also be linked to depression. Under stress, the body enters a fight or flight mode in which the hypothalamus releases a hormone corticotropin, which then travels to the pituitary gland, causing it to secrete adrenocorticotropic into the bloodstream. When the adrenocorticotropic reaches the adrenal glands, it causes the release of cortisol into the bloodstream, which has the effect of overdriving the body's systems, with the heart beating up to 5 times faster. In long periods of stress, cortisol is released more often into the bloodstream, contributing to problems such as high blood pressure, immune suppression, and possibly asthma and depression. After losing his job and family, Tristan began experiencing periods of high cortisol, causing his body to be overworked and stressed. The irregularities in dopamine and serotonin due to his depression would have spurred on most of his symptoms. A lack of serotonin would cause him to have erratic sleep patterns, and in his case, a low appetite. The lacking amount of dopamine would have contributed to his general feelings of dread, as he would not be able to achieve the same amount of pleasure from activities due to his body's reduced response to dopamine.
A famous case study regarding the biological causes of depression is Caspi et al. 2003, which revealed that specific alleles of the 5-HTT gene may be attributed to increasing a person's susceptibility to depression after stressful life events. The study attempted to determine if the polymorphismic 5-HTT gene had a possible role in depression by using genetic testing, specifically STR analyses. Researchers compared participants with the normal 5-HTT genes with long alleles to participants with short mutated alleles of the 5-HTT gene. The two alleles are quite common, with the longer allele only being slightly more common. The researchers sampled using a convenience sample from a cohort of participants who are already participating in another longitudinal study. The sample consisted of 847 participants of age 26 and were split in 3 individual groups, depending on the length of the alleles of the 5-HTT gene. The groups were Group 1, 2 short alleles, Group 2, 1 short and 1 long allele, Group 3, 2 long allele. Researchers assessed and recorded stressful life events occurring after age 21 but before age 26 using a life history calendar. Past depression was also assessed and documented using the Diagnostic Interview Schedule, or DIS. Correlations were tested between stressful life events and depression, between the lengths of the alleles and depression, and self-reported perceived stress and the length of the alleles. A test was conducted to see if life events could predict an increase in depression over time among the group of the short alleles, and it concluded that those with a short 5-HTT gene were genetically predisposed to traumatic events. However, that does not imply that the people with those genes will immediately become depressed, and the long alleles cannot, but rather conclude that some individuals, especially those with the short alleled 5-HTT gene, may be more susceptible to stressful life events compared to others. In conclusion, gene-environmental interaction has a potential to play a major role in spurring on depression. Some people may be genetically susceptible to depression and stress more than others. For instance, Tristan, in our scenario, may have a genetic predisposition which, combined with external stressors in his life, may have activated certain genes, causing a shift in the physiology of his brain and changes to his behavior for the worse.